Hello and welcome to our today's Omego presentation. We want to show you today why Omego is, in my point of view, the most incredible device for lower extremity therapy. Because in my point of view, it doesn't matter which patient you bring me. So if it's a neurological patient or orthopedic patient, pediatric, or it really doesn't matter which disease the patient has in the background, we can treat everyone with Omego. So my name is Niki, I'm occupational therapist and I'm clinical application specialist at Tyromotion. With me today is Barbara. Barbara is head of product management and she will be our patient today. So she's healthy, she doesn't have any diseases, but we want to show you today with her how you can use Omego in your clinical setting. And this is the goal, that after this 15-20 minute presentation, we want you to have the knowledge how you could integrate this great machine in your daily routine. So first of all, Omego is a robotic assisted device. So the great thing is you can do passive, assistive, but also active therapy. And this gives you a broad variety how you can use Omego in your clinical setting. On the other hand, Omego comes with this OmegoPlus chair. And this chair you can rotate to the side, which makes it easy for you to do the transfer with a patient. And this is why I would ask Barbara now to sit down in the chair. Even with an electronic wheelchair, with a normal wheelchair, you can do the transfer in a very easy way. Afterwards, we can rotate her into the middle. We fix her in this position, so there is a handle below. And afterwards, we can move her with the chair around so that we can place her in front of Omego in a central position right now as close as possible. Afterwards, we fix the brake and we can start the therapy more or less. So when you start Omego, because it's a robotic assisted device, we have a reference run. We already performed this reference run, so I can just fix her legs with the footrests here. And that's it, we can start the therapy. For this demonstration or presentation, we created a therapy sequence. So with our software, you can create individually a sequence for every patient you want. We have this sequence here and we start now with the force assessment. So, we just press the start button and we start with the force assessment. The reason why we've selected the force assessment is because we can use the outcomes of this assessment immediately for our therapy plan of today. We have to select the pedal position, so in which position Barbara has her legs right now. And I want to ask Barbara now to sit in an upright position. Because it is an assessment, what we try is we try to do it in a standardized position. And this standardized position we would recommend you is 90-degree angle in the ankle, in the knee, and in the hip. So this is why I had to lift her a little bit higher. Now I ask Barbara to cross her hands in front of her trunk, lean a little bit forward so that she can't compensate with the backrest. I press the start button, and Barbara has to press now with her legs against the footrest. So what we try to simulate is a stand-up position. And he has to apply this force for 15 seconds. So the result we get now is that her maximum force on the left side in this position is 30.7 kilograms. On the right side, it's 29.7 kilograms. And both legs together at the same time, this is what we call sit to stand force, is 57.5 kilograms. So we can see her left leg is a kilogram stronger than the right leg. When we save this, we can continue. So Omego comes with 3 assessments. It's the movement modulation, the force assessment, and the proprioception assessment. You can do each assessment, but you don't have to do it all the time. So right now we created a sequence where we only do the force assessment. The next function we want to show you is the stepper function. So with this, you can simulate alternating stepping movements, which is a great preparation for relearning walking. So we need some kind of range of motion. If Barbara can tolerate a verticalization and a fully extension in the knee, we can bring her in a very high position, what we want to show you now. On the other hand, if Barbara maybe can't tolerate it yet, or if there is a limitation in the knee extension, for example, or also in the ankle or in the hip, you can let her do the movement in this position. So you have several options to adjust all those parameters to the patient's needs. To bring Barbara in an almost standing position, we have to lift her up a little bit. And before we do that, I want to bring her a little bit closer so that she is in an almost standing position. As I mentioned before, it always depends on the patient's needs and if she can tolerate it or not. As I mentioned before, Barbara isn't a real patient, she is healthy, so this is why she has trunk control and she can do it, she control her trunk on her own. If you have patients in the early phase of rehabilitation, or maybe if they have instabilities in the trunk, Omego comes with 2 belts. So you can attach these belts here in several positions to fix her in a very safe and comfortable way, so that Barbara feels safe and that she can't slip from the chair. So we can adjust the height, and we can also adjust the position of the backrest. Right now we want to have Barbara in a more or less upright position, and we can also move the whole backrest a little bit forward or backward. So to bring her in this almost standing position, we shift the backrest as close as possible to Omego. And with that, we can also increase the height a little bit. All right. As you were also able to see, we can adjust the position here of the handle of the monitor, and we can make it comfortable for Barbara, and we can now change the setting in the software. So on the one hand, we have the possibility to adjust the range of motion with the position of the footrest. On the other hand, we can adjust it here in the software that we say we want her to have a high range of motion or a lot of flexion in the hip too, or if we want to have maybe only a small movement and only with knee extension. All right, as soon as we start the therapy now, Barbara can start performing this stepper movement. So for that, she has to press her legs downwards against the footrests, and she has to do that in an alternating manner. Right now, Barbara is doing this in an active way, but of course, as I mentioned before, Omego is a robotic-assisted device. We can also give her assistance. We can increase the frequency so that we say she should walk with around 50 steps per minute now. And now we ask Barbara to do nothing. And even if she's doing nothing, we can see now that the machine continuously moves her leg. So this is for, as I mentioned before, early phase rehabilitation. If my patient can't do it on his own, the machine can help here. On the other hand, for you now, it is hard to see. Is the machine moving the legs? Is Barbara moving her legs? So this is why we have the feedback in the software, where we can see how much Barbara helps doing the movement. So if we ask her again to participate in the movement, we see an increase of the force on the left and on the right side. So this is where I can see how much force she applies. Of course, I can also go back to the neutral position, and now Barbara has to do the movement completely on her own. On the other hand, we can give her resistance. And the nice thing here is we can do that for quite a long time, because a lot of patients, they can do a few steps, but after a few minutes, they get tired. So after a few minutes, I can increase the assistance, or I can even give them more resistance to challenge them. And I think this is one of the most important facts, that with Omego, you can challenge every patient. Doesn't matter if it's a healthy person like Barbara, we could even challenge her, or of course also the typical patients we have in a neurological field where we focus on endurance or on the range of motion. We have several viewing options in the software, so as I mentioned before, you can see if Barbara is helping doing the movement or not. On the other hand, we can focus on the frequency, so on the cadence, how many steps per minute we want her to do. On the other hand, we would have a focus on power, so with how much power she is moving her legs, so how much force she applies on the footrests. And what I really like is the symmetry viewing option, because this also gives your patient the feedback if he applies more force with one leg or with the other leg. So for example, a typical stroke patient, you will see that they apply a lot more force with the non-affected side. So this is where you can see that the footprint, the size of the footprint is bigger, and also that the symmetry slowly walks on the right side, for example. All right, so this is the stepper movement in a verticalization. Of course, we could even lift her higher, we can bring her closer, we can focus more on a hip extension. So we have a lot of options how we can increase the range of motion or how we can adapt her, all those settings to her needs. On the other hand, keep in mind, we can do the same movement in an almost sitting position. So this is where we would focus more on the hip flexion, for example. All right, so if we stop here, the therapy sequence will now bring us to the next therapy we selected before. This is the leg press mode. So as you saw now, the stepper mode is a mode where we focus on repetition. We want to see a lot of repetition in almost a short time. So here in the leg press, we focus on an active movement and not especially on a high amount of repetition. I mean, you can do it, but it is more that we want her to actively strengthen her muscles. And for strengthening, you have to do an active movement. So here we have the same situation. You can adjust the position however you want. You can let her do the leg press in the same position we had before, but you can also lower her a little bit, for example. And most of you might know the leg press from the gym. And in the gym, we have the leg, as we are in an almost lying position. And if we are in an almost lying position, we need another group of muscles to stretch the legs forwards or backwards, or to perform this movement. And for that, we can stay in this position, but of course we can still bring her in a more lying position. Comfortable? Mm-hmm. Hopefully not too comfortable that you don't fall asleep, but that's the good point here with the leg press. Now it's the patient's job. So it's the patient's job to perform this movement. So we do not have a passive or assistive mode here because it's an active therapy, it's strengthening, and we can strengthen the muscles in an active way. So as soon as I press the start button now, Barbara can perform the movement. And we can see now it is a really small range of motion Barbara has. So we can, for example, stop here and go back and adjust the position. For example, to bring her a little bit more backward. Yeah. And with this, we can adjust again in the software. As soon as I press the start button again, machine will bring her back in this initial position and Barbara can do the movement. As you also were able to see, Barbara uses the hand rests here now. You can also let her do the movement with her hands in front of her trunk. So then she needs also her belly muscles. So it's totally up to you what you want to focus on. The parameters we can adjust here is on the one hand the resistance, which means how much resistance she gets, how much force she needs to press her legs against the footrests. On the other hand, we have the option to adjust the return force. So the return force means with how much force Omego brings her legs back in the initial position. So with a low return force, we have, for example, a situation that Barbara has more or less lift her legs back to start in this initial position again. If we have a high return force, the machine will push back Barbara very fast and with a lot of force. So Barbara has to focus that she's doing this movement slowly. So this is a great mix of eccentric and concentric muscle strengthening exercises. All right, another thing I want to show you is the decoupling mode, because Omego comes with two drives, on the left side of drive, on the right side of drive. And for example, we can use this pretty cool with the decoupled mode. And Dominic will show you now in detail how this looks like from the front, because the exercise is the same like before. I ask Barbara to press her legs down and up, lift her up. And here you can see that if she presses more with one side, the left leg will not follow anymore. So before that, we had the situation that even if she would press with one side, the other leg would follow. And now they are decoupled. So she has to apply the same amount of force on the left and on the right side to continue this exercise. All right, thank you very much. So I will make a step back again. Here you can see it again. We are in the coupled mode, so both legs together. And if I ask Barbara now to press only one side, the other side will follow. So this is what we know from the gym. We can cheat in the gym a little bit, so we can use the non-affected side more than the other side. And here we can let her do the exercise like this, or we can also let her do the exercise with both legs the same amount of force. All right, so this is the leg press. When we step back or we go back, we have another movement. Whoop. It's the cycle mode. And Barbara and I, we discussed quite a long time if we should show this cycle mode or not, because we know that there are a lot of cycle devices on the market. And our focus for this presentation is to show you that Omego can do the cycling, yes, but there are so many more options that you can't compare it with another cycle device. But because we know that the cycle movement is for some clinics really, really, really important, we don't want to hide it. So we will show you the cycle mode too. And as soon as I press the start button here, Omego will bring a patient in this initial position and Barbara can start cycling. So there are again several viewing options, which I really like is the symmetry, for example. Oh, Barbara, you're ignoring your right leg. That's cool. Or for example, the free cycle mode. And this is one of my favorites. So the free cycle mode is pretty cool because you can see if she can do this movement in a smooth way or not. And what I want to show you here in this cycle mode now is that you can change the range of motion in a very, very easy and cool way. So if I can see that Barbara can't tolerate this movement, I ask her to stop. I can stop here. And I can change, for example, the position of the footrest here. I can make it really, really small. And I can also let her cycle in this position, left leg with a small range of motion, right leg with a big range of motion. And we can see now, compared to the movement before, this is a really, really small range of motion now. But some patients don't tolerate it in another way. And, stop again. we can also, whoops, increase the range of motion. And this works pretty fast, so I can adjust those settings very easy and fast during the therapy. So now we can see Barbara needs a lot more movement in her joints. And of course, there are several options or a parameter I can adapt. I can give her assistance. We have also a specificity detection, and we can decide how sensitive this detection works. So there are a lot of settings and parameters I can adjust. All right, so this is the cycle mode. We use the cycle mode more for endurance, also for alternating movements, and to increase the range of motion. I forgot which mode we have. Can you remember?
It was a game.
It was a game, yeah. I think it was a game. It was we decided it before we started the setting. So first of all, I will adjust your position again.
Sorry.
So that it's the same. Dum, dum. Yep. All right, it's a game, it's the highway game in the stepper mode. Yes, I can remember again. So, we will focus here now on a small range of motion. Oh, it's a rhythm game.
Rhythm.
Whoops.
Sorry.
Better. Sorry. So, let's go. Barbara has to move her legs now in the stepper mode to bump into those small circles. And what you can see here is that as long as Barbara is bumping directly into those, her cube will become smaller and smaller. So this is how we increase the level of difficulty. And it is a nice game because we can also adjust the speed, for example. So we can make it harder for her with the bumps per minute. So now it is definitely faster. And she has to do it continuously in a rhythmic way. So relearning rhythm is so important for walking because we need rhythm to be able to walk more than a few steps. And if we can walk in a higher speed, for example, we also need less muscle force. So if the patient is only able to walk in a very, very slow speed, they need a lot more muscle force, and it's not as intuitive as it should be. All right, so this is one of our rhythm games. There are several. We will continue now because now we have a game, and it's called Highway. It's also in the stepper mode, so we can stay in the same setting here. And this is pretty cool because I don't have to adjust all those parameters all the time. So only if I change from one movement, from one control mode to another, I have to adjust it. But here, oh, I'm so sorry, but Barbara is a very experienced car driver. So this is why we will change you to level 10. Because all our games come in with 10 levels. And you can always decide if you want to control the games with a game, or if you want to control the games with the leg press or with the stepper. So you have the function if you want to focus on movement, like we do it now, she has to move her legs, range of motion, or if you want to control it more or less by force, what we will do now in the leg press mode. So this is why we jump now to the next game. This game is called Firefighter. And we have to adjust the parameter here again. We can, for example, a little bit back, a little bit lower. And And here we ask Barbara to press her legs in an active way. You can use the handrails
Oh,
too.
thank you.
Today I'm a nice therapist. And we measure now the force Barbara applies on the left and on the right side. We can also focus only on one leg and say we want her to control the game only with the left leg or only with the right leg. So in the game she would have to move both legs, so that would be my target, but Omego only detects one side to control the game. And this game is called Firefighter, so Barbara has to control the water exactly to the position of the fire. And this is pretty nice for the muscle strengthening because she has to apply force now, but she has to hold in this position. So again, we don't focus too much on repetition here. Of course, it is part of the game, but we want her to control her muscles or to control her movement and to hold in this position. With the different levels, of course, we can increase the level of difficulty. On the other hand, we can also give her resistance. All right, so this is the firefighter game. And for the next therapy, we have to change the footrests because it's the ankle joint training. And this is a training which is, in my point of view, the most underestimated therapy we have with Omego. So first of all, we change the footrests. Thank you. So we press the security switch. Afterwards, we change the footrests. I will do it now on this side. And afterwards on the other side. I hope someone was counting the time because one of the excuses why the therapists don't use it is because they say they need so much time for changing the footrests. And now you can see, ta-dum! That's it. Switch is released.
Well, high score.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I trained it hard every night, every day and every night. I do nothing else than changing footrests. All right, why do we have to change the footrests? Because here we have a magnetic coupling now. That means that the patient is really safe in this position, and even if the machine would do a movement we don't expect, nothing can happen. All right, so we have to adjust the range of motion. We set the limits here. We decide the angle. And what we do now is we start the therapy, and I always start in the passive mode to give my patient the feeling what happens now. So what is the movement we want you to do? So here we focus on the ankle training, and this is so important for walking because there are so many patients with flat foot who can't activate their muscles, and this is why we want to train it. So here we do it in a passive mode now, but even now we can ask Barbara to participate doing the movement, help doing the movement, before we switch into the active movement. In the active movement now, we ask Barbara to do it actively. She can do it by pressing down her legs, but also by lifting her legs. For us, because we are healthy, it's a little bit tricky because we would decouple from the magnets because we would apply too much force. But you can see with patients, this is an amazing way to train how to activate the extensors so that they can lift their toes. Good? Mm-hmm. And again, we can do this in an almost standing position. We could even do it in a lying position, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense for me. But you can do whatever you want. And even for patients with knee instability, I forgot to mention, we do have those lower leg support. So you can attach those to the other footrests to support the knee so that they can do the movement without an instability in the knee. But please try to use them as less as possible, because as soon as my patient can actively stabilize the knee, I always want them to stabilize the knee. All right, so because I got a lot of signs like this from my colleague Dominic, we crashed this presentation. We thought we would need 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah, it was a little bit longer now. I'm sorry for that, but I hope we were able to show you why we are huge fans of Omego and why we want you to be huge fans of Omego. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Get in contact with us. Barbara, as I mentioned, is from product management, so she's responsible for all the technical things with Omego, and we are always welcome thankful for your feedback. I'm from the therapy side, so I'm very happy to share my experience with you, also with the other Omego users. And if you have feedback, please feel free to contact us. And thank you very much for your time. Barbara, do you want to mention anything?
Thank you for joining today.
She's just happy because normally I'd make a lot of jokes with her or about her, but today I'm
really surprised today.
I was really nice today, yeah. No jokes about Barbara. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Bye.
Boah, wie lange haben wir denn jetzt?